Good morning, everyone. Welcome to James River TED Ed Club. Today we'll be hearing from Ava McHugh.
Think about where you've been this week. Think about the new people you've met, the people you've passed in the hallway, the friends you've hung out with, the people you drove by on the road, or the people you saw in the store. Now, multiply that by a lifetime. On average, in our lives, we meet 80,000 people. How many of those people can you say you truly know? Here I am standing before you, and I bet some of you are thinking to yourselves right now, yeah, I would say I know her. Some of you might say, I play sports. Or some of you might say, I love chicken wings, which I do. Or some of you might just say, oh, she's a bit much. But I would venture to say that if asked the question, do you know Ava McHugh? All of you would say yes. But for me, I think that in order to truly know someone, you need to share a piece of yourself with them. And today I'll be sharing a piece of myself with you that very, very few people know. This is my mom. A lot of you know her because she is always around. Like, seriously, I have never come home to an empty house, ever. She's at every one of my sports games, and I'll be the first to say they're not always the most fun to watch, like 22-0 blowout, you know. She puts fresh flowers on my bedside table every week, without fail. We get our nails done together, and we volunteer at the local animal shelter together. She makes my breakfast, my lunch, and my dinner every single day. She is the most selfless person I know, almost to a fault. And she gives her life every day to help the people that she loves and the people she doesn't. I feel really, really, really lucky to have her. You might find this hard to believe, but my mom has treatment-resistant severe mental illness. I've never known her to be completely healthy. For her whole life, before I was born, she was completely healthy. And then after I came, which should have been one of the happiest times in my parents' lives, she started to hear voices. And these voices told her to kill her newborn daughter and herself. Luckily for me, my dad knew something was wrong and saved us both. She was diagnosed with treatment-resistant bipolar disorder and postpartum psychosis. From there, our lives became intertwined with the harsh realities of her diagnosis. I couldn't really pinpoint what was different about my mom when I was younger. She slept a lot or stayed up all night cleaning. She laughed a lot and she cried a lot. She tried to sell all of the furniture in our house or tried to rescue every person or animal she saw on the street. However, it wasn't until first grade that I truly grasped what was going on. All dressed up in my homemade pilgrim costume, my dad came to pick me up from our Thanksgiving feast at school. When we got to the car, we realized that my mom was gone, and my dad started to look for her. The events that took place next were all a blur because all my first grade mind could think about was that my mom was gone. People were looking for her everywhere, and I was scared to death. We found out that she ran away to the parking lot of a local church, so the crisis was averted for that day, but I will never forget the day I realized why my mom was different. My childhood is littered with memories of similar experiences and visits to the hospital to see my mom. I remember getting my elementary school spirit wear, learning to skip, and visiting my mom in the psychiatric ward all in the same day. I had a lot to deal with from the start, and I remember crying all the time at school, too afraid to tell anyone what was wrong. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't worry about my mom. This has been my entire life, birth until now. You might think that this is supposed to be a sad story about how my mom's mental illness has ruined my life, but it is exactly the opposite, because sometimes out of the deepest despair comes the greatest gifts. I can't help but feel extremely grateful for the gifts that my mom's mental illness has given me. The biggest thing I've learned is how to be compassionate. I always try to portray myself on social media and through my clothes, hair, friends, sports, and grades that I have it all together. And until today, some of you may have been fooled, but so many of you, like me, have real problems that you endure each day and bring with you to school. It's so easy to forget that there are things bigger than high school when you're living in it. Through my mom's mental illness, I've learned that everyone has something, no matter how they may appear on the outside. This gift allows me to look at difficult situations in an empathetic way and reminds me that my situation is not unique. It has opened my ears to listen, my eyes to see beyond a person's facade, and now use my voice to tell my story. There are no flowers sent to my mom while she's in the hospital. There's no GoFundMe set up to help with my family's expenses. There's no meal train to help my family when we're in need. There is still a stigma. For this very reason, I've not shared this story with any of you before, in fear that people would judge my mom. Her doctors describe her as the most hard-working patient they have. And because of this, she hasn't been in the hospital for 2 years. I'm inspired to tell this story because in our school community, I hear of people struggling with mental illness all the time. I now feel comfortable making this story accessible in order to destigmatize mental illness and to encourage people to talk honestly and compassionately to each other. My hope for each of you is that when you see someone crying, offer them comfort. When you see someone struggling, look for a way to help. When you begin to make an assumption, remember that things aren't always how they appear. When you hear someone has mental illness, treat it as any other illness. I hope that by giving you a piece of myself today, I can inspire you to give a piece of yourself to someone else so that we can talk more honestly about who we truly are. Thank you.